Joined in the studio by Miles Allen. So, hi Miles, how are you this evening?
Good evening, Tom. I'm very well, thank you very much.
Thanks. It's good. First of all, I have to say thanks for coming down to join us this evening. It's a great pleasure to have you here. I've read your book recently and I've quite enjoyed it. And it's quite good that you've come down, really.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So, that's okay. And also, well, first of all, I'd like to just ask you, for anyone who hasn't obviously read your book before, would you be able to describe what the Walkers of Legend is about at all?
Yeah, certainly. If you imagine a world similar to our own, back in the Middle Ages, in fact, for those of you who have read or seen the film Lord of the Rings, that would give you a good idea. If I take you back just a few hundred years into the past for a moment, there was an empire of a medium scale that decided to invade one of its neighbours in order to increase the people that could find to create its elixir of life, which came from torturing people and getting the elixir from their blood. So after a while they ran out of countries to invade, and they got to the final one, and so this is where the book starts, and it's this final tenth of the land called Melendria, which are the good guys, if you like, and they're about to be attacked. So this is where it all begins. Okay, and so
it's book one at the moment. What can we expect? Is there any future books coming out? Can we expect?
Yeah, this is. I designed it in the beginning. Originally I tried to write one book just as a hobby, and that kind of increased to 6 books, which I couldn't help fit it all in. So I realised there was a 6-book double trilogy here. I've completed book 1, obviously, and book 2 is coming out in November, which a lot of people are waiting for. So yes, and then I've got another 4 books to do after that. They're all planned, so there's a lot of excitement to come yet.
Okay, I was going to say to you as well, it's obviously different types of characters in the books, different from different ages. So obviously I find that quite interesting as well. Can you explain anything about how different?
Well, the two main characters are in their early 20s. That's Chain and Garamond, and they reflect people that I've known in the past. Other than that, there are just as many interesting characters that I could put in there, really, and they do range from different ages. So there's a ranger who's in his 50s and kind of starting to get over the hill, but he was a bit of a legend in his own time, so he's very skilled. And there are some younger characters that you can have a bit of fun with. And there's a 7-foot barbarian, who's rather amusing. And there's some other quite unusual things, like a cat, for instance, which people are quite interested in finding out what happens next.
Yeah. Okay, it's quite interesting so far. You said to mention about Lord of the Rings. Was that obviously what inspired you to begin with?
Yeah, I think Lord of the Rings was the first book I ever read that took me into the fantasy world, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, I'm not sure it's a bit of a product of its time. It's a very long-winded book, but it's a fantastic piece of writing. So yes, I mean, my book's a lot shorter than that for that reason, to make it a faster pace, which is, as my editor said, that's what I needed to do, so I cut it down. But other than that, I really moved into other authors like David Gemmell and David Eddings with the Belgariad series. I mean, these are fantastic writers.
Okay, I was going to ask you as well, obviously with the different authors, growing up, obviously when I was doing research for the show, you saw that you like reading like fantasy from an early age. Is that Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit brought into that as well? And then
mainly the Lord of the Rings in the beginning. I guess it wasn't too early an age. I probably got into it probably in my late teens. I was a bit of a late reader, really.
Okay, what we're going to do now though is I'm going to take... Just heard the Black Keys with Gold on the Ceiling and Ed Sheeran with the A-Team. I'm here with Miles Allen, the author of The Walkers of Legend. We recently just been talking about obviously how he's been setting the book, setting about how what the book's about, and talk about how he's got into the book. And we're going to talk a bit more now. Obviously, Miles, obviously you've done a setting about what the book's about. Is there any information about obviously like the characters and about how they've developed throughout the book and what we can expect from obviously going the main character in the next book?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing about a book when I've read one has always been the characters themselves. I mean, people don't read a sequel to a book or enjoy a book because of the story particularly. It's always about the characters and getting you emotionally involved with them, enjoying their ups and downs and the good and bad parts that happen with them. So for the main character Garamond, he's a young woodsman, and he has to set out against impossible odds to go and find his friend who's been abducted into this terrible empire. He's very naive. He doesn't know that the task is impossible. He's just driven to do so. So basically he picks up his grandfather's axe and off he goes into the wilderness, if you like, across the mountains, and faces death on a number of occasions. And slowly he begins to mature, and he meets the first dead man that he's ever seen, and so on. So he starts to come through the book, and they teach him how to fight, and that carries on in that way. On the other side of the fence, Jane, who is this his friend who is abducted, he wakes up in this really strange empire which seems absolutely pristine and fantastic on the surface, but underneath there's this terribly subjugated underclass, and there is habitual torture for any kind of misdemeanor that goes wrong. This is obviously in order to produce the elixir of life, although he doesn't know that at the time. So it's about him growing as well, and he has to, in the end, he has to take on his master, who's an incredibly powerful magi, in order to stop him casting a wonderful spell, or a terrible spell, which is going to start the war. So he realises, whatever happens, he's got to stop this thing. So he's all through the book, he's trying to find a way to do this impossible task as well.
Okay, sounds very interesting, and so thinking there's more to come. So there's obviously 6 books to come, and just wondering about as well as your book. Obviously, I've done research as well. I've obviously seen that you obviously didn't start out as a writer in books. You started off in the engineering business.
I did, yeah. I actually, ironically, I failed English at school with a DO level, so that wasn't the best start. But I didn't enjoy school, and I was what they call a late developer, I guess. But I went in as an apprentice into Marconi, as it was back in those days. And I was totally amazed that people would pay me money while they taught me. So I kind of had a conscience, and it all went from there, and I started just working very, very hard, and I did that for long hours, long into the evenings, and I did that for about 15 years. Got into engineering, started writing software for fighter aircraft and for Airbus and those sorts of things, and then it just it went on from there, went into management, and I got fairly high up the chain, but I just got bored with it. So
Alright, so obviously that's when you obviously decided to become an author. Obviously, did you come up with the idea straight away, or was that just something that came over time, or was it something you were thinking of?
No, it was a complete surprise to me. I had written plenty of things in my time for engineering specifications and management reports, but of course that's all non-fiction, and so it's completely opposite to actually trying to write a book. So I just started writing one evening as a hobby, and thought, this is fun, I'll carry on with it. And I just got the most amazing feedback from people saying this is really good, which totally shocked me, but that's family and friends, and they always give you good answers. But it seems like they were being honest about it, and they were saying, look, give up your job and do this. So I thought that's a lot more fun.
Yeah, because recently you saw as well, the book's been that much success, it's obviously outsold the Hunger Games as well, and it's how do you feel about that? Was that
in one particular store that happened, and one of the major stores in Ashford, and that went very well, obviously, and I mean the store staff were absolutely delighted. I sold the most books of anyone, so they were absolutely over the moon about that, and I've got another three signings to go back to, as they want to do for book 2. So that's just I've been staggered by the fact that people have been so fantastic, and it's selling so well. I mean, it wasn't like that for the first 6 months. It sold very little because nobody knew me, but now word of mouth is starting to spread, and now we've got into hundreds a month, and it's really starting to take off.
Okay. Also, as well, if you do want to get it on paper, it's also on Kindle as well, and obviously you can get it online as well. Also, I was going to ask you as well, with the book signings as well, you said obviously that you've got book signings as well in Ashford to do for the book 2. Is there any more book signings that you're doing locally or anything like that? Or?
Yeah, I've just finished one round of book signings around Kent, and I'm now in the process of making sure that I meet my deadline of the end of July for book 2. I have to get the draft finished by then to ensure that I'm going to have it ready for the November launch for book 2. So there's just lots to do.
Okay. We're going to take another short break now, and also Miles, been told you've got a request for me as well this evening to play.
Oh, I have. Just let me look it up. It's for my dear other half, Claire, and my daughters, Poppy and Maya, and they would like, if I can find it, which is just difficult. Here we go. It's Alex Clare, Too Close.
Okay, so here you go. Lovely Friday evening, and I've got Miles Allen in the studio with me, the author of The Walkers of Legend. And I've got to ask you next, Miles, is obviously with the book, obviously it's sort of a fantasy type genre. Is that sort of books you're interested in that you've grown up with, or?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed fantasy. I generally read most fantasy in their genre. I used to do some sci-fi. Some people I used to really enjoy back then. Asimov is one that particularly comes to mind. But I think I've just finished off on fantasy now. It just seems to be more up my street, I suppose.
Yeah. So, like, obviously, with what type of authors do you inspire you? Is it like obviously like J.R. Tolkien? Is he? Yeah,
Tolkien, Gemmell, Eddings and Abel Garrett and that sort of thing. So those kinds of people. But I mean, Pratchett. Although I can't transfer Terry Pratchett's work into my book. I mean, the guy is an absolute genius, and he's an inspiration to anyone who wants to write. Good.
And also, you said about book signings earlier. Have you got any other book signings, or is there anything you want to?
Yeah, the next round of book signings, I forgot to mention, the next round of book signings I'm putting together now, so they'll be coming out in June probably. But I've got to focus on writing books at the moment, but there'll be another round going around Kent, so look in the local stores and some coffee shops as well I go into, because that seems to go well.
Obviously, I think you've got Twitter and Facebook as well, and obviously, can we find you on there at all?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Facebook in two places, either me as Miles Allen or as Walkers of Legend, and there's two distinct parts there that you can find different information at. But if you want to have any information about me and what's going on, where the book signings are, they're always going to be published on there, so on either one, so you can follow and get that.
Yep. We had a question pop up earlier as well from Dale in Ashford. He was asking, what would your advice be to someone trying to get a book released?
Right, that's not an easy answer. It's not. It's actually quite simple to do. Although I'll have to give you some answers here because to be realistic with you, first of all, don't think you're going to get published. It's just probably not going to happen for a long time. There are 200,000 books trying to be published every year in the UK alone, so you're fighting against those, and there have been a lot of people out there obviously doing it for a long time. So it's quite hard to get published. You need to go through an agent first anyway, because most publishers close their doors to new authors anyway, so you have to go through agents, and now agents are getting filled up with all the people going to them. So the best chance that you've got really is all I can say is write the book. You're not going to like this, but you put it away for a year, you edit it, you leave it for 6 months, you edit it again, and you keep doing this until you can no longer say, oh, that's good enough, someone else can fix it. You will, or you'll fail. And that's really, it's harsh, but it's a fact of life out there, because there are so many people trying to do this. Get others to read it and tell you what they think of your draft. Ignore what they thought of it as a book. You want to know about the errors and badly formed parts of the book. They'll always give you a nice pat on the back for anything that you're doing like this, so you just have to accept that that's what's going to happen. I'm afraid you're going to have to pay for an editor who's experienced in your genre. This is going to cost money. It's not cheap, but don't think about not doing it. They will really help you to get a book into shape. They're the experts, so that your book is good and ready for an agent and publishing. Try for an agent to as I take your work. Never pay someone to publish your work. There are plenty of what's called vanity publishers out there. They will tell you that your book is great. They'll charge you a fortune to publish it with minimal exposure for your book at the end of the day. It's really about them making money. So you need to go to a publisher who is not going to charge you. But as I say, go through an agent and they'll prevent that. And expect not to get an agent straight away, and get ready to self-publish, and that's great fun. It's what I do, and it's the new way of doing things, and it's really taking on the major publishers now.
So is there any websites or anything like that where people can share information or books with each other or anything like that?
Yeah, this is a pioneering new thing. So they're exploding everywhere. So it's difficult to say which ones are better than others. But there's goodreads.com. If you want to send some chapters up to www.orthonomy.com or .co.uk, that's the HarperCollins website set up for new writers, and there are other new writers on there and experienced writers. You can send some chapters and they'll give you a review, which is what I did first of all, and that provides you with an awful lot of really good feedback. And it took me 2 years from putting my book out there the first time to and an awful lot of retraining to get my book into shape with an editor at the end of it, before I could even think about getting it published.
So obviously we've got different other authors like J.K. Rowling, who had obviously books who struggled to get Harry Potter even published the first time round.
Yeah.
Would you say it's best to keep at it and then keep trying until it gets going? Or
I think that mantra you just have to play over and over in your head.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to keep trying. If you think your book is good and people have told you that you can rely upon, external people can tell you that your book is really good and you get some good feedback, then you just keep going, because you're one in so many, and if your book is going to make it, then you have to stick your head above the parapet and make sure that people see you. And that's what I've been doing book signings, going out, obviously coming onto here and things, and just getting a fan base going with Facebook and on Twitter. It takes a long time. I've been doing this now 10 months, and in the last 3 months, the book is now really starting to take off. But it was very slow work in the beginning, but it may take more or less time depending on what you can do.
Alright, thanks for obviously giving us information about the advice. What I'm going to do now is take a... Got any question, just get in touch with us and we can answer it for you. I've got Miles Allen in the studio with me. He's going to be here for a while, and I've got a question for you, Miles. You were talking about your book Walkers of Legend. You said there was going to be 6 books in this series. After then, would you continue at all being an author?
Do you know what? It's too far away to tell. I really wanted to, finish off the rest of my life being an author, because it just sounds pretty cool to me. So I'd really love to do that. But I don't know whether I'll continue writing fantasy. There's a lot of things I want to do. If I can make enough success out of the 6 books, then I'd really like to go out and do some things around the world that I've needed to do. So there's some schools I want to build, and some holes I want to drill for wells and things for people who can't find these sources themselves. So, but the world's a big place, and I really want to get out there and do as much good and see as much of it as possible.
Sounds really good. Have you got any more advice you can give people? Any other information you'd like to give out at all? Or
really, I just think mainly if you want to become an author, just to finish off, you just have to keep trying. I mean, that is the single most important thing that you have to do. You will definitely have trouble along the way trying to get published, and expect that straight up front. But if you keep going, then eventually you will start to make inroads. Your easiest route to getting books sold is going to be on something like the Kindle ebooks. They're easy to get up there. They don't cost much to get up there, if anything, and you can make usually quite a few £100, just as a start to get you going, even if it doesn't take off big time. So, but that's the easiest way to get it out there and to get yourself known.
It's good. I'd like to thank you again, Miles, for coming down to the studio today. It's been quite a pleasure having you with us. And don't forget as well, you can also get in touch with Miles through Twitter and through Facebook as well. He's also got different pages as well for him, his personal account and for his Walkers of Legend book. And he's also got a website as well. And Miles, would you like to give out your website at all?
Yeah, it's nice and easy. It's www.thewalkersoflegend.co.uk.
Okay, and so people, if you want